Hi, Jessica here. Welcome to my story, part 2 of the How to Beat the Bully Without Really Trying. We begin on part 2 at the last day's part 1 of chapter 1 to 5. Now we'll go chapter 6 through 7. Let's begin now reading. Chapter 6. The Brain and the Bees. The Brain and the Bees. Strange as it seems, Toby was apparently ignoring the danger lurking on the other side of the fence. He must have been, because he certainly suggests we should move the game closer to the fence. Too many rocks over here. I should have realized right away what was happening. No way, shouted Dave. Are you crazy? Slim Leo. Toby, don't you know what's on the other side of the fence? Bessie asked. We can't play any closer to the McDubb brothers. They're not paying attention to us, Toby told Bessie. Then he looked right after me. Besides, we have every right to be here, unless you're chicken. In the corner of my eye I noticed Jessica, Carolyn, and Samantha. They had come down to watch us play, trying to sound cool and confident. I told Toby, let's move the game over. Then, I'm now afraid of some loudmouth backpackers. That satisfy anyone. We walked over to the fence, and Toby spoke up again. Hey, let me be quarterback. He was on the other team, so I didn't care much who drew the ball. On the next play, they ran out towards the fence. Toby faded back and drew a pass toward him. The pass may have gone in Dave's general direction, but it went 20 feet over his head. We all watched it. I remember thinking for a moment that it was a nice sparrow. It seems to hang in the air for a few seconds before disappearing on the other side of the fence, right into the McDudd's lawn. I thought it would see it again. Then I remembered that it was no ordinary ball. Wesley's uncle worked for the Browns and he just given him the new ball. In fact, Wesley had proudly showed it to everyone in class that very morning, pointing out that it was a real NFL football. Now it was gone. Wesley held his hands to his face with a look of complete English, only able to mumble, "Foot, foot, foot." What's the matter with you, Foot? Slim asked. What's the matter with your foot? Slim asked. But Rusty didn't answer. Instead, he exploded at Toby. You knew it over the fence. You drew it over the fence. You did it on purpose. Toby stood with a slight flutter. I didn't do it on purpose. My hand slipped. Rusty said, what I ain't going to do now? You owe me a ball. I ain't giving you nothing. Besides, it ain't that big of a die. Not a big deal, Rusty screamed. Toby put a hand up and said, wait, there's an easy situation. What situation? What solution? There's an easy solution. What solution? Rusty asked, and the rest of us wondering the same thing. We longing closer to hear what he had to say. If I knew what was coming, I had slunk away in the other direction. I definitely wasn't prepared for Toby's response. Think about it. Rusty, we have Ronnie standing right there. I didn't like the sound of my name popping up. He's like the bravest and toughest kid in Garrettsville. He can go get. Besides, he said he wasn't afraid of the method. My heart almost stopped, and I crushed my big mouth. I wanted for Rusty and the other kids to hear that he was crazy, that no one could go into the McDudd's yard to my growing along. No one said everything. All eyes were on me, including the three girls and, worst of all, Josh, who had joined us on the field at the moment. Rusty's ball went over the fence. For the first time, I realized that my reparation for barely could have a bad side. In this case, a very bad side. Four crazy brothers who would just love to torrent some dopey kid who had wandering into their yard. To my honor, to my horror, Rusty even smiled a little, believing that Toby had solved his problems. Boy, Ronnie, I'm sure glad you're here. What was he thinking about? What was he talking about? He actually believed I should go in there. For a football, I couldn't speak. Maybe the kids mistook my sight for coldness, because the next thing I knew, they began pulling an old melted garbage can towards the fence. Let me help, Josh offered. I tried hard to think of a way to wrestle out of it, but I could just imagine what Jessica would think of me. No doubt Carol would spin my whip out storming tomorrow for the whole school. I glummed and there noticed Toby and Josh smiling at each other like they were enjoying a cigarette. And I realized Rusty had been right. That half pass was not excellent. Toby probably had planned it the second him he saw the new football is Lunscott class. Miss Lunscott's class. Figuring this all out did nothing to help me. I walked towards the garbage can. Maybe there'll be some skateboards on the other side with shaking hands and clomping on top, grabbing the fence, and pulled up. Just then I heard Jessica yell, "We should call the cops!" And dingling, listening. Finally, in a voice of reason, when no one would say anything, she continued, a bit less sure herself. Well, just in case, you know. Sadly, it was followed by Russie. Jessica, they wouldn't come. The cops are afraid of the McDuds. But don't worry, those brothers have finally met their match. Go it, go to it, Whitey. A cold late day when wind blew against my face and I noticed that the sun was already going down. I balanced with the top of the fence between my elbows and peered over. The lawn was a completely disaster. Junk was everywhere. There were towels and old cars and groceries lying in a rusty pile. Grass growing up around Martha's surface left out in the rain. The only thing that was taken care of was a row of polished, shiny motorcycles. At Globular, the McDuds were home, but well, I noticed it, looking very small and far away, down at the back corner of the lawn in front of the Cumberland garage, was his prize football. The kids behind me were quiet. By now there were at least 30 of them. One kid went away. He was so scared. How long I balanced up there, I still had no idea, but time seemed to slow. I noticed that the wooden gate leading to the front lawn was closed. It was probably as far from the bar as possible after a brief prayer. I swung my legs over the stockade top, balanced on a wooden post, and lowered myself into the law of death. It wasn't barely that made me jump. I don't have any of that running through my veins. It was my feel of life returning to the way it had been in my last school. I couldn't let Josh become the next Wildco Warboy. I had to climb over. But once on the ground, I realized I had made a bad decision. The fence, without the add of garage can and other kids to boot me up, was too high to climb. I looked up and it began to shake. The next lunch slipped up into my throat. I turned around, accepting the McDuds to be standing there. But they wasn't. After a couple of seconds, I tiptoed towards the garage and the ball. I came around an old car and I could see the ball clearly now. Maybe I'll make it. Glancing sideways, I went up to the bar and bent over to pick it up. As I grabbed it, my heart stopped. Standing 5 feet from me, when three heavily tattooed me in the garage. I choked down and screamed. Then realized that they were all busy looking down at some motorcycle part and haven't noticed me. All I had to do was tiptoe the other way and I'll be fine. Honey's going in there. Weston suddenly screamed from behind the fence. The three of them spun around. Ugh! Was all the debris out of my mouth. Two of the brothers, Snell and Sterling, told me, while the other one turned and growled something. You're breaking in, growling one guy. Now coming closer. He had a big blade head, a lightning belt tattooed on his neck, and a gauntlet. Me? I was just trying to get off football. I struggling, backpedaling. Football? I told you to get off our lawn, said the one nearest me. He had long black greasy hair that was tied back by an orange banana. Do you think I was a kid, Dane? Kid? Do you think I was kidding? Do you know what happened to the last guy who didn't listen to me? The third brother had yawned down and was holding something shiny and melting in his hand that was cycling me now, and my knees were wiggling. You're trying to steal our motorcycles? The bell once snapped. Motorcycles. I can barely ride a bike. I said, hey, look, the kid's got a rat on his shirt. The one with the greasy hair lit pointing to my chest. The blade was one looked down. You're right. There is a rat. He reached out and gripping the front of my shirt in his hands. Little Ratfield boy. I'm who? A who? A wizard. Don't play dumb. Our family's been battling those low down dirty Ratfields for years. And you just stroll in here wearing that rat shirt. It's Mickey Mouse. Who? The bell warmed back. I realized these guys who were dumb bunch of leg nuts. But dumb as they were also the scariest guys I ever met. Gracie Hale said, he's definitely a Ratfield. They must think they're pretty smart sending a kid to do their dirty work. Well, kid, you don't get the drops on us. We is too smart for that. Bradley added, we better send them a message. Show them what we do at to Little Spices. What do you think we should do with him? Why don't we ask the brain? Why don't we ask the brain? Good idea. Go get the brain and tell him to come out here. For a month. My parent loved a dipper where a brother called the brain coming out. Maybe I'll be saved. Surely this guy would see that while I wasn't a spy on a battlefield and let me go. I started to exhale, but within a minute the back door slammed, and when the brain walked into the family afternoon light, I almost threw it up. He was well over 6 feet and had more muscles than I ever seen. His black tank top was standing with what looked like blood. I looked up at his face. His eyes were dark, crazy, and angry, and he had a little large bone piercing through his nose. And I thought, and I knew nothing was going to save me. The bad one, smiling evilly, said, "What do you think we should do with this here, Bradfield?" The brain glared at me before picking up a bottle and smashing it over his own head. Now you know why we call him the brain. And he, I didn't wait to hear more about the brain. My legs, full of nervous energy, walking it off. The barrel still had my shot in his hands, and I heard him whip, and I heard it whip, but my feet keep moving. The McDuds took off after me. I ran blindly down and out on the junk, waving in and out of the old washing machines, piles of bricks, and even a wooden Indian station. I turned left between the butt and I softened through for a second that I was cornered. Seeing the gap, I ran and did a baseball slide right under an open car door, almost dropping the football. The blind didn't need to slide, he just ran through it. The rushed metal handlers turned off the car's frame. The door slowed him temporarily, and I sprinted and humbling my way through the jump to the far off opening. As I ran towards the gate, I noticed a padlock hanging out from a rusty latch. I didn't have time to think. Instead, I lowered my shoulder and ran as hard as I could into the gate. There was a loud bang. I fell back to the ground, and landing next to me was the biggest wasp nest I ever seen. The fall had cracked it open, and hundreds of furious lumberjackers came scrambling out. I slammed myself into the gate again. This time the rusty Helens came loose and it swung open. I went out and slammed the gate behind me. I backed away towards the wall. A loud, deep, angry buzz filled the air, and then, ah, bees, ah, oh, I'm getting out of here. The McDuds were screaming and cursing. The McDuds are screaming and cursing. The gate opened partway with the barrel one swinging wildly at the air, screaming like a baby. Hearing the commotion, the football game tore over to the chain link fence that separated the field from the sidewalk. They were right in time to hear motors on another um, then the first little was one. McDuds went past them, shrinking, crying and floating in his arms around his head, like the devil himself had chased him. "Save me!" he screamed as he turned the corner. Three more brothers following him, as my friends looked back down the block to see what had scared the tour's most dangerous criminals so badly. They knew the me standing there, dirty, short, weapon, holding a prize in football. They went bananas. They scrambled over and all around the chain link fence and rushed towards me. Instantly, I found myself being hoisted up on shoulders while the chilling mob carried me down the street. He beat the buds with his bare hands. One kid was shouting, "That's what I'm talking about," rising escalators as he took my pistol. I smiled down at him and flicked him the ball. Carla just rolled her eyes and walked off. But I remember thinking as we wound in the corner onto the field that no running back, not Walter Payton or even Jim Brown, had even made such a brilliant football run. In the distance, I saw Jaws and Toby paddling away as fast as they could. For the time to time, they looked back to make sure I wasn't coming for them. Chapter 7: The Legend of Old Man Johnson. By the time by the time I arrived at school the next day, my victory over the McDuds had spread far and wide. The bus was abuzz with it. We were, of course, sliding around Miss Luscroft's, but at art with Mr. Bowers, the story begins again. Mr. Bowers himself told the time that McDuds had circled his minivan and had threatened him for 12 blocks. By the next day, the terror had grown to the point that Mr. Freebletop himself monitoring it in the morning announcements talk about famous heroes and the barely bravery and then related by saying, "We have barbered our footstool now to have some barely in action." Someone in this town finally stood up to a group that's mentioned our town for years. Well done, Whitey. Now rise for the plagues. As we made the farewell speech with our hands on our hearts, Miss Lonscroft sneering at me. When we sat down, she said, "I don't think there's anything brave about doing something as stupid as you did. First off, you were trespassing. Secondly, other children would now approach strangers. You can join me for races and white and easy and splendor, while your actions were wrong. I talked I talked to Miss Furniture about letting you read it over the last speaking tomorrow." Rushing interjected, "Miss Lunchcrunch, Ronnie Rusty, see your energy for Matt. Boys and girls, take out no textbooks, notebooks, and prayer healing. A look around." Rusty was angling and talking it out at Buck. Jessica was busy writing something. Unfortunately, she wasn't busy looking at me, which was strange, since she had been down I was supposed had throttling the McDuds, a word that maybe Keller had begun to pose in her mind against me. And as for Toby, he hadn't said a word since I climbed in the fence. Sitting next to me, he looked pale and thick and was clearly involving eye contact. In all the excitement, I haven't given him much thought, but I had seen that smile he had just been giving in as I walked to my face. Toby was out to get me. "Whining, yes? Miss Lunchcrunch," I shook. "What is the answer to number 5? Apparently, we were checking in the math and homework. 42, I guess." She smiled. For a second, I thought I had it right. Then she continued, "No, you're not even remotely close. I suppose the famous McDucks ate your homework while they chased you down, though. Actually, I chased them." I correct her. "Silence! Silence!" The next just The day's just started, and I already had enough of you. She stared at me long and hard before moving on to the next question. Halloween, my last favorite holiday, was fast approaching and yes, I like the candy, but there are many other things about it that don't quite work for a secular scary like cat like me. First off, I hate the dressing up part. I don't mind seeing Superman wear full-failing princess costumes, but I can definitely do without the Draculas and Freddy Corkins. Last year, Walker one Bonner consumed me along with his pose as I walked the streets of my own neighborhood with Tommy, Tammy, Tawny, and Tommy. He yelled, "Foul!" and blasted me in the face with shaving cream. "Hey, what bone? How does that feel?" He laughed. I recall my eyes beginning to burn. "Hey, check it out, guys," he had continued. "This shaving cream contains moisture. Avoid contact with the eyes." Whoops! I remembered their lines as I stumbled blindly along Bell Boulevard. Well, at least he was far away now. Maybe, with Josh and Toby leaving me alone, I caused through Halloween this year with no problems. I will soon discover, however, that in Garrettsville, Halloween is easily avoided. The kids began talking about costumes and candy even before September came to a close. Some of them started collecting their secret smashes of shaving cream or silly string. I made a mental note to get a costume with a protector anywhere, eyewear. Stories of AIDS flying and paintballs shooting were quietly discussed in the back of the bus, but I didn't learn of the town's main hall until one afternoon in mid-October. I finished my homework, grabbed my football, and walked out the door. Weston and Slim were waiting for me out of their bikes. They looked kind of nervous or something. We're going for a bite. Why, we are going for a bike ride before we play football, Wesley explained. "Oh, okay, sounds nice," I replied. Slim giggled nervously. "Get your wheels and we'll get Dave," Washington yelled as he rolled off. Meet us at the end of the block. It was a nice onto day, and why it seems like a good idea, but Washington and Slim were acting a bit off, and my chicken sense was tingling. I noticed my plan was threatened as I pulled my bike from the garage. We were all linking up. The three of them were even stranger. They motored quite. "Hey, Whitey," and we'll pull off winding down the streets and cutting through pants. We passed Crystal Lake, and as we made a right onto Emo Street, the place slowed. Somehow the street felt darker. The house looked black and run down. The grass wasn't as green as there were no people walking around. Then, in the distance, I could see a house that made my stomach grumble. As I wished there was a bathroom nearby, somehow I knew it was where we were going. An anger and panic swept through me. "Why are you bringing me here?" I asked in the sincerest voice I could manage. "You see, Ronnie, just a little closer," was the answer. The house was misnomer. It was boarded up and disturbed. The paint was peeling and dirty. It must have been white years ago, but now it was ghastly brown. The green roof was missing the ties and was full of holes. The post looked thinner and the lining was missing in spots. The old Lonnies, championing and dirty, sat at either side of the walkway. like they were grinding in the place. I had trouble swallowing, my hands quivering, and I hoped hoping no one was looking at me. We walked out to the curb, and the four of us stood looking at the den of evil. It's old man Johnson's house, Weston said. He moved there his whole family. I heard the house is possession, Slim said. I fully believe him. It seems to be looking down at me with the top two windows look eyes and the downstairs windows falling in the grind. I thought we lived in Garrettsville, not Antonville. I motored, looked at me, slightly confused, but their attention returned to the house as the old swing out back scuzzing in the light breeze and a shutting banging against the siding. I no longer care about my tough guy with petition. Wesley beat me to it and yelled, "Let's get out of here." We all turned behind him, and it wasn't until we were safely at our football field near the vacate elementary school that we stopped pleading. The McDowell brothers, by the way, haven't bothered us since the Watts incident. Evidently, they thought I had brought the yellow jacket bees with me that day as I wanted from the rat fields. So Wesley turned to us, breathing hard. Who's going to do it this year? I didn't know what he was talking about, but I knew I wasn't like wherever it was. I tossed the football onto the grass and got off my bike. "What's the deal?" and asked, "What's this it? What's this it you're talking about?" Weston looked at me in the eye and said, "Ronnie, that's where we're going on Halloween night." I figured I'd contact him on that one. He might be going there, but I wasn't going anywhere near the place. I won't be able to join you. I had. Slender interrupted me. "Riley, we got to go. Every year something scary and exciting happens at old man Johnson's house. You can't miss it." "How you going?" "Well, no, my older brother Charlie say it's the thing to do in Garrettsville. And besides, he wouldn't let us go last year, but now he'll let us go because he wants to meet you. He says they're all talking about you in the high school and what you did to the McDuds." "Talking about me in high school? What was next? My own show on the Disney Channel?" "Let's jump in. Look, Waddy, none of us had ever gone, but now that you're with us, we'll be all right. Besides, every little someone tries to get close to the house and do something crazy. Yeah, and you just the guy," they added. But I cut him off. "Crazy wasn't my ideal. A great Halloween. That's nice. You go be crazy, but my mom makes me to take my sister out, so I probably won't be able to go with you. Too bad, though it sounds excited." "Don't worry," Weiss said as he put a hand on my shoulder. "We'll wait for you to finish. This is something I know that someone as tough as you, someone who lives for danger, would not want to miss." Oh man, I didn't know what to say to get out of it. "Oh, okay." I'm mumbling, then trying to get back to no nicer things. I asked, "Still time for football today?" We all thought about it, but it was already getting late, so we said goodbye and walked off. It wasn't until I was on my street that I remembered the football and had left in a field by the school. The sky was dark orange and night was coming on, so I raced back as fast as I could. By the time I got to school, it was almost dark out and the chilly air smelled like leaves. No one was around and I found myself alone on the empty field with an abandoned building sitting quietly in the distance. The place sure was creepy. Something seems to move in the shadows by the building. As I reached for the football, I thought I was a guy with a hockey mask peering down at me from one of the open windows, with my imagining running wild. It was long before my feet did too, and I played at home full speed. If I couldn't even be alone on a field for 5 seconds, what will happen to me on Halloween? That night I slept with the light on, thinking of escape plans and hoping old man Johnson was safe behind the bars, not lurking behind the walls of his house. Chapter 8. A ghostly encounter. Anyone dressed up for Halloween at Bible. In New York, we weren't allowed to dress up in school, which suited me fine. But that was not the case here. Apparently, Mr. Feebletop loved Halloween as much as the kids, and anyone was in full costume as they arrived that Thursday morning, dressing as Babe Ruth. Mr. Mr. Feebletop, whining at the front door and speculating in appalling costumes as they passed by. I was dressed up as a football player. Russia was Darth Vader. Dave and Slim were mummies, were mummies. Although their costumes have pretty much unraveled by the time they got to class, Mr. Lunchcrunch was the only one not dressing. I love her costume. What Wesley whispered to me, "Yeah, she makes a perfect watch." I shouted back, "Oops." Miss Lunchcrunch spun around. She swung her whirling in the air angrily, and for a moment I really believed she was wearing an evil spell. Actually, it was almost as bad. "Ronnie, you'll have 2 more weeks of wishes with me for that one. Ugh. And as for the rest of you, hurry and get unpacked. If the costumes prove too distancing to our lesson, there'll be no Halloween party at the end of the day." I tried to focus, but it's hard adding immense numbers and shoulder pads. Amazingly, he thought we did have a party that day, but I soon risk would happen, for that's when things started to go badly. Toby had been quieted since his little plan to get me killed by the McDuds had failed. Now Wesley did his best to wake him up, walking into the party in full depth Vader, clogged in a mask. He opposed Toby, who wore a fake mustache and a Von Dubé hat. He grabbed him by the shoulders and said, "Toby Will Connell, I am your father." A bunch of us laughed. The only person not smiling was Toby Will. "Yeah, you're having fun now, but let's see who's smiling tonight at old man Johnson's. I heard you were heading down there." "That's right," Wesley shot back. "We'll be there, and we'll see who goes farther up the steps to the. Look, I need a button." Waiting to change the subject, Miss Lunchcroft was giving our bags of candy. Sure enough, she had put a large bag from her closet and placed it on her desk. She cleared her throat and began, "I want you to sit down. I prepared a little party treat. Several days ago, I made each of you an eggshell sandwich. The egg salad sandwich." I gathered and doubled my head onto the desk. The day in the party as it potentially ended. Miss Longcroix gave us a stack of homework and reminded us to study for the science test tomorrow morning. Homework on Halloween. She identified many as acidic wits. I'm tired, my sister whined. I had already dragged her to about 100 houses. Oh, come on, Penny. A few more. Just think of all the candy. I don't care, she whined. My feet hurt. I want to go home. I could see her. I could see her. She was about done, and I figured that my friends had probably left by now without me. Now we're concerned. Let's hit Oak Street before heading it back. Just 'cause you're too scared to go out with your friends, you don't have to retard me. Scale me serious. Penny, where do you come up with this stuff? I just enjoyed spending time with you. She wasn't buying any of it and shook her head as I walked out her home. As slowly as I could, everything seemed quiet as we climbed the porch steps. I let out a little sigh of relief as I turned the corner and entered the front door. There just three Hollanders in dark outfits were waiting for me. Actually, it was only Slim, Dave, and Rusty talking on to my mom. But I think I would have popularly, Holly, so where are you going? My mom would ask Rusty. We're just hanging around. Just some candy. Show Riley the Halloween spots. Riley's afraid to go out. He's especially scared of shaving cream. Penny's big mouth started up but stopped just as quickly when she saw me reach for the softball customer. I had found that threatening to smooth on her where I was effecting a way to shut her up. My sister's always the joker. You know, shaving cream is the mantra. Rats poorly with my sensitive skin. Got housed this one time. Yeah, not fun. I was mumbling through the execution until I realized no one was paying attention. My mom changed the subject. Penny, go brush your teeth. After all that candy, we don't want any more cavities. And boys, don't get back late. Don't, Mommy. You have school tomorrow. We want Miss Wolfbone, was the answer. Slim grabbed me by the shoulder and we handing it out onto the October night. The air wasn't too cold, and I was happy to see how bright the night had become, until I realized it was due to a scary full moon on the rise. The four of us walked down the Wilson streets. Some kids were running around having fun. Obviously, they weren't heading in the direction of old man Johnson's home. As for us, our conversation was dim and quiet. Slim looked white and hadn't said much of anything. Dave was talking to Russian about eggs on something, although neither seemed really interested in what they were saying. And since the dinner huddled us over, every, every naturally we turned onto Elm Street. A crowd of kids had gathered in several lots from the Johnson house. Most of the kids looked nervous or scared. One kid said, One kid said, "Oh, good, Wine is here." As if I was going to somehow protect him, I tried hard to control my leg from shaking and slowly shuffling my way to the back of the crowd. Trouble, drew in a phone Toby. Soon find me. There you are. I thought you guys wasn't sure how it's changing. A nose job standing behind him in a little Jackson jacket with silver wires sticking out from the shoulders and sleeves. He was quite angry, looking at Sirius. Some kid in a mask who I didn't recognize said, "What do you think? Ronnie's not going to miss something like this." What a fool, I thought. Toby looked at me, but perhaps thinking about my legendary passing ability, turned to Rusty. There's no way you guys are heading up to the house. I can see it in your eyes. I don't see you standing up there, Rusty said. Then he drew down the gullet. Maybe if George hold your hand, you'll cross the street. Toby sneered, and I thought he was going to Rusty, going to Rusty. But then again, Rusty was standing next to old Fest of Furley himself. Me instead. Toby walked right out the house, stopping front of one of the store lines and planting a big kiss on it. Some kids shouted approval while others laughed. Toby just struggling back from the house, high-five jars, and turned to us. Now, can any of you top that one? Oh, kissing that line. Like that's supposed to mean what? Like that's supposed to mean something. Well, I see contour. The line is at the end of the walkway. You didn't even make it to onto the porch. Do something brave. Then start talking. At this, Josh walked towards Rusty, and the L grew cooler. He glanced down at him, and I thought I could see the faint outline of the mustache growing above his lips in the moonlight. Josh walked away from us past Toby, and went on top to the Johnson porch. Reaching the front door, he put his leg back and kicked. I could clearly hear the loud thud, satisfied that he had caused enough damage. He shoved him back to us. Toby smiled at Jaws, and the two of them turned and faced the crowd. Toby said, "There, big mouth. No one's done that before, and I know none of you will ever come close." The crowd started clapping, and I almost joined in. Toby was right, though no one was topping it then. Weston held up his left hand to silence the crowd. His right hand gripping on my shoulder. He began, "Not bad, but come on. I thought we'll all come down here to something explosive." Knowing what was coming, I tried to interrupt. Relax, buddy. I know you're eager to start. And then to Toby and Josh. "What? You think Ronnie here is afraid of this place?" "Heck less. Please shut up." But he didn't. Most of you saw what he did to the methods. Riley can handle those stone lions. He can easily kiss them, tickle them, or ride them home if he wanted to. I tried to interrupt again. I haven't studied for that science test yet. So, it's okay, Paul. Riley continued. I know you want to get to it. No, idiot. He turned and looked right at Toby. He can do anything you can do. Then, looking at Josh, Riley continued. "Oh, you, and a lot more." "Anything?" Toby asked. I wanted to grab Riley and dart in him. But before I could, yeah, anything, he said, poking his finger into Toby's chest. Toby looked down at the finger for a moment, and then looked up at me with sparkling eyes that reflected the large moon. He said, "I bet he won't go in the house." This brought on a round of gasps. The kids gradually start talking now, and all look at me, waiting, waiting for the response. Waiting for the response. I did the only thing I can do, scrambling for the excuse. "Hey, that sounds like it would be something." I took a deep breath and continued. "There's never no will do. But you see, there's a problem. The house is going to be locked. I mean, my longer conventional point was interrupted. Not by Toby, Jaws, or Wesley. Not by any other kid standing in there. But by the front door of old man Johnson's house. For the first time that night, it cracked slightly open in the breeze. Two kids immediately bottled up down the street. We had joined them, but Wesley's hand was still gripping my shoulder. Now much taller. I couldn't move. Jaws dropping as all of us stood, staring at the door. It was slowly blue closing again. Once he got his voice back, Toby said, "There, that solves the problem." For the first time in weeks, Jaws looked directly at me. Everything he had stopped. I could feel his eyes piercing at me, and I knew that all the gains I had made since first day of school would be lost that night if I didn't go into the house. And shockingly, no, my foot took a step forward, then another. I reached for the gate. Then the stone lion seemed to be looking at me, glaring and sharpening, exhaling, continuing very slowly down the broken steps. It was most darkened up here by the house. "Go for it, Whitey," I heard Rusty shouted. There had to be some way out of this. Just jumping for a second. I told myself, wait, what was I thinking? Not a chance, okay? Plan B. Turn and run and never return to Garrettsville. I had made it to the porch and was shaking uncomfortably when the front door suddenly creakily opened. Pass, pass. "Hey, kid." I almost ripped my pants. Someone was right there. I could see a white hand holding the door lock. "Relax. Come here." I'm focused on the sun and could see in the shadows what looked like an old man in pajamas and a robe. His face lit up and I noticed he was smoking a pipe. "That's right. I'm not going to eat you. I've been listening to your Reverend in the Master discussing. And if you do want to come in, I promise not to shut your hand off." Then sent a shudder down my spine. "Oh, sorry, just some Halloween humor." He laughed. His laugh wasn't mystery, and he seemed old and not very threatening. I remember my options, realizing I'd rather face this guy than a yellow judge pounding it. I stepped in. There was a faint light coming from the living room and a fire in the fireplace. It seemed like almost cozy, not the blood-staining towards chamber I had sat. "Well, my dear boy, now that you're here, have a seat." He motioned to one of the two big art monsters near the fire. "Oh, uh, thank you," I said. "You're essentially very welcome. But I must say, you are the first to actually enter my family home, and I'm not really prepared for it." He took off a puff of his pipe, and the smoke smelled sweet and smooth. Care, care to join me in a drink?" "Oh, wait, I guess you're more of a drinker, or a milk drinker, at low age." "I have some club soda. That's the best I can do." I'm afraid he thought Italian from the kitchen and poured the drinks. I tried to control my breathing. I had calmed down the sun, but the scene was still creepy. "I see you're not going to be seeing as much," so I started. "I'm old man Johnson. At least I'm at this year. Are you? And you are Whitey. So, well, Whitey, sadly I didn't murder everyone, and I'm not poisoned by the devil." "So what does everyone think?" that this place is haunted. Well, lady, they do so because my brother wants them to. He lives here and he loves a good fight. And absolutely, I'm a Broadway actor who grew up in this house but moved away years ago. My brother is traveling and asked if I would take over the horrors this Halloween. I'm between shows and jump at the chance. He turns slightly and glances around the room. Not exact the Hamptons, but it's home. And now you have discovered my secret. And never said anyone will actually try to enter the house. You must be brave. Not really. And daunting, as my eyes became adjusted to the light. And jumped back to notice a human skull set on the coffee table. I cleared my throat. Actually, I'm a big chicken. I was shocked as has said out loud, but it felt good to talk about it. How interesting. So how did a cow find the nerve to enter the front door? Well, I had to keep my top guy with repetition. And how did you get that? Before I knew it, I was telling her all the stuff that had happened to me. It seems interesting to ask, Wiley, why is this repetition so important to you? Not even kid has one. And what you go through to keep laws seem more trouble this is. That's what you want. That's what you want. This just being a dream. In my last school back in New York, there was this kid Walker. New York. Do you say New York? Sure, you saw me playing messenger at the opera theater. Uh, no. But anyway, last year this Billy Walker would beat me up almost every day, wherever I was online. He would cut in front of me. A little bit stay scared his fist and ultimately rages. I don't want to ever go back to that. And just as important, there's this girl in my class, Jessica, who I want to repress. I see. Well, Wiley, we had an interesting situation. We both had a secret, and we both want to keep it. Want it keep. Besides, for you, the only person in this town who knows I'm here is my brother. I'm here is my brother. If I help you with Lord's secret, will you keep mine? Absolutely, I answer. Spanner, I'm sure that Molly crew of boys outside is with you. So I wish he would. Oh, are Josh and Toby out there? He asked. He knew. Then found my story. Yeah, I answer. Is your is your lawn at last seen out there? I thought he was talking about a dog until I realized he meant Jessica. I shook my head no. Well then, she'll miss all the fun. You see, you already been there for over 10 minutes. So by now, everyone out there must thinking you dead, or worse. I wasn't sure what was worse than death, but but I let him continue, since you know my acting ability. You'll be happy to hear I decided to stage a final skin or really put them over the top and paint the source like we'll play Gosler in King Lear. The critics loved my take on that role. He went over to the window. Come, watch Lord Friends, and peeking out through the shutting, and the next thing I knew, my old man Johnson was shouting, "No, no, Whitey, I'm sorry, I crossed you." Oh, sure enough, they're all bothering in every direction. My new friend laughed. They ought to help you a bit. I let out one fine scream. Once you're on the porch, just to silence the suckers in the crowd who might believe you gave a one-man performance in here. He's sure talking and funny, but I like him a lot. We shook hands and he said, "Thank you, my boy, for the most plastic Halloween." Then he noticed me started at the scar. "You like feel it? Huh? Don't get jumping. I just call him that. I leave him to practice Hammett, but he comes in Harley on Halloween too. Why don't you take him as a little trick or treat plus it, princess?" "All right, thanks, I guess." I pick up Philip talking to him in my jacket, wave goodbye to Miss Johnson, and step out onto the porch. True to his word, he let out one final mourn from inside the house that could be heard a mile away. When I reached the street, I didn't see anyone at first, but then I noticed some boys hiding in the bed bushes. When they saw me, they started to emerge like ants out of holes. They gathered around, shocked to see me alive. After the bed, their fear and shock worn off, and more of the original crowd began to join us. They cheered, and anyone kept asking me questions. I just said it was no big deal and started walking home. "Come on, Whitey, what the heck happened in there?" Weston asked. Going there yourself if you want to find out," I replied, and in that whole silent him, I was still a little annoyed at how he had eagerly on Josh and Toby, who now stood grinning at me a few feet away. I smiled at them. Nice idea, Toby, telling me to go inside the house. Oh, oh, I got you guys at Silver. What that I took out Philip and tossed it to them. Josh quiet, unaware of what is what. But when he saw a smiling, homeless skull looking at him, he well, woo, just as Wesley took his pistol. The next day was let another Russell stories and tales. Some of the stories had me wrestle the ghost of old man Johnson. Others pinning me against escaped prison hiding out in the house. And all the tales, I was hellish and I never corrected anyone. At one point before lunch, Jessica came out to me. "You feel surprised," why the Warbone. She smiled. "I'm not sure what to make out of it." My friends brushes, and before I could figure out an answer, she walked off to John Callan. The only person I celebrated that day was a quiet, English Toby sitting in the world next to me. I ignored him, but I sure had given him more thought. I was soon to learn that each of my victories and his embarrassing defeats only made him more determination to see me fail. That's the end of the story I have read. Chapter 6, 7, and 8. Chapter 9 starts tomorrow. Until then, I'm Joseph Crudup. I'll see you tomorrow.